Good. Okay. First of all, this is called a bat. This is what you're going to be working with your clay on top of here. You don't want to work directly on the wheel. All right. I have two different kinds of bats. One of them has little holes that you can see through where they go on these little knobs right there. And this one has holes on the underside. All right. Two of them are further out towards the edges, and those are the two that you want to line up. So if you flip it over, if you just kind of wiggle it around until you know you have it on there, like right now it's kind of wiggling. This one's a little harder, but you want to make sure that it's not moving back and forth at all. All right. At this point, you're going to get your clay. A lot of times I'll just cut it directly off the block so you don't have to wedge it or anything. But what you do want to do, first put it into a cube and then hit it into a ball. All right. Doesn't have to be perfect, but the more you can round that out, the better. All right, once you have that, you're going to take your clay and you're going to try to hit it into the center, as much in the center as you can. If you get too far off center, it's going to be really hard for you to begin working on the wheel. So if you just hit it into the center, you don't have to, throw it down, but you want to actually bring it down with your whole hand. Don't drop it from up here. At this point, you want to start creating what's called the skirt. This means you're going to take your thumbs and you're going to just press down along the edges. You're not smearing it, just pressing it, and you're just going to turn it as you go. This will help keep it stuck. All right, so you're creating a little skirt. Okay. If you look down at the pedal, it's kind of like a pedal in a car for when you want to accelerate. The only difference is you press forward and it just goes whatever speed. If you go all the way, it's going to go faster. To get it to stop, though, you have to press the side closest to you. All right? It's not like a car where it's just going to automatically stop if you take your foot off. So what I would suggest doing, get it going a pretty decent speed for you. If it's too slow, it'll be tough, but if you do it really fast, it's going to be hard as well. So if you get that medium speed going, whatever you're comfortable with, you can just kind of let it go. Okay? You never want to put your hands directly on the clay when your hands are wet or when they're dry, because it'll grab your hand and sort of move it around, and it's not going to be fun. So we're going to start out with a bucket of water. I usually use warm water. You'll need a sponge, a needle tool. One of these will always be over here, one of the cutoff wires. And then you want a wooden rib. Okay, so that's what you're going to kind of set yourself up with. So the first thing you're going to do is get your hands wet. You're going to get your hands wet and you're going to place it on top of the clay. All right. It really helps if you just get a feel for the clay first. You don't need to push down or anything, just kind of get a feel for it. And now what you're going to have to do is really make sure that it sticks. So we did the skirt so that it really starts sticking. But at this point, you're going to mound your hands on top of it and you're just going to press directly down. All this is doing is getting it a lot more secure to the bat. All right. If you've got a lot of bumps around the edges, if you take this part of your hand and sort of press down where that skirt was, it'll smooth out the skirt a little bit more as well, okay? So as you can tell, it's starting to create more of a mound. If you're creating something completely different, if it's too flat, it's going to be really hard to work with, all right? The next thing that you need to do, so first we got it stuck to the board, or to the bat. The next thing that you need to do is do something called centering. Centering makes sure that it's directly in the center of the wheel, because if you've ever watched a video of people throwing on the wheel, if it's not centered, it starts looking real wobbly, and then you get things off track, okay? Centering is one of the hardest things for most people. So get that wheel going again, and what you're going to do is you're going to have to use both your hands for this. Your left hand is actually going to go into your hip. If you can find your hip bone with your left elbow and pull back, you're good to go, all right? So you're never going to push forward with this hand. You're going to lean your hips forward so that you're leaning into the side. So if you notice, I'm lining my wrist up with the center of the clay, and here in a moment, I'm going to push forward and hold, almost like you're flexing your muscle. Your right hand is going to make a fist. As this is moving forward, your right hand's pressing down, all right? You want this knuckle right here to line up with the center, all right? Not like this, not like that, not like that. You want your knuckle right in the center. So I'm going to go ahead and begin. Left elbow into my hip. All right. I'm pressing forward and I'm pressing down at the same time. And you're almost just going to hold. You want to flex as much as possible to keep that steady. Come off there slowly. So what you want to make, in essence, is something that kind of looks like a hockey puck. All right, flat on the top, the sides are straight up and down. The way that you know it's centered is if you could put your hands lightly on here and you don't see any wobble. Right now, we see a bit of a wobble. All right, my hands are kind of going like that a little bit. So what you're going to do, once you kind of get that, we're going to put our elbows on our knees, just going to squeeze in. It's going to make it a little taller. All right, this is going to set us up to center it again. A lot of potters who do it kind of for a living can center it just one time. A lot of you guys may find that you're spending 5 minutes trying to center. It just takes a little bit of time, and this will be the first thing that you're going to practice. All right, so again, same thing to center. Left elbow into your hip. Line your wrist up with the center. Get your fist. Pushing forward with my left and down with my right, and I'm flexing, holding, and slowly take off. All right. Now, if you notice that you feel like your hand is starting to catch on the clay, like there's friction, take your hands off, get some more water. All right. You don't ever need to add a whole lot of water, but you can't have your hands catching. All right. So that's getting a little better. We'll try it one more time. Call that done. It's pretty good. All right. Now, if you notice I'm trying to take all that extra clay and just kind of keep it in the bucket, that's fine. If you ever have any large chunks of clay that come off, just throw it into the bucket. All right. So right now we have gotten it stuck and we've centered it. So now what you want to do is you want to start opening it up. So what you're going to do is you're going to take your thumb and your fingers. So you place your fingers here, place your thumb in the middle, and you're going to start pressing down in the center to open it up. Now this is the point when you're going to start feeling some resistance, some friction. So if you want, you can keep your sponge out and just start like slowly adding a little water as you need. So press down. Now you don't want to press down so far that you go all the way to the bottom. So what you want to do is, as you're going, you're going to want to stop occasionally and check and see how deep or how much you still have left in the bottom. So what you're going to do is take your needle tool, you're going to push it down into the center, and you're going to use this finger to figure out where you hit the clay at the bottom. All right? So I've hit clay with my pointer finger, so I'll bring that up. So what that means is that that is how thick the bottom of mine is right now. Okay? So that's just as thin as you want it. You don't want it any thinner. If you actually have it a little thicker about to here, you're doing good. All right. So now we've opened it up. We've got that center opened, and we are ready to start pulling a wall. So get that going again. Okay. If you don't like your wheel messy, you can kind of clean it up as you go. Okay, so at this point, this is the tough one too. You're going to use both your hands. Your left is going to be on the inside. Your right hand is going to be on the out. You always want to work on the right hand side. So wherever 3 o'clock is on your wheel, that's the side you want to be working on. All right? Because if you think about it, if my hand's over here, my nails or my fingers could catch and bring it around. But if I put my fingers over here, they're not catching anything. They're just, if anything, going to go that way. All right? So let's begin by pulling. So what you're going to do, get a little bit of water on there, and you're going to use pretty much your middle finger here to go all the way into the bottom. If you notice, I've got to touch the bottom, and then over here, I'm going to hold the sponge like this, and I'm going to use these fingers to press up against the side, all right? So I'm going to put my right elbow on my right leg, and I'm going to slowly press my middle finger on my left hand towards the fingers on my right hand, and then slowly come up. lessen the pressure, and let go. So notice I'm doing everything very slow. If you are talking while you're trying to do this, or listening to music while you're trying to do this, your focus is going to get a little altered. You're also going to find if you have too much caffeine in your system, or if you're hungry, meaning you're shaky at all, you're going to have, it's going to be harder for you. All right? So if you notice, I've started to make my kind of more of a mug or vase shape, but my walls are not thin enough yet. So I'm just going to keep repeating the process. So I go in there, my middle finger on my left hand is connecting with the fingers on my right hand, and I'm giving more pressure to the outside so that it doesn't open up too wide. So think about it, if you're pressing too hard on the inside, it's going to move the wall out. So you want to have more pressure on the outside as you're going up, but you want it to be even as you're coming up. All right? So I'm going to keep going. And again, the slower you're doing this, the better. I've got my right elbow sort of centered on my right leg. Starting to get a bit of a wobble. There we go. Do it again. And again, you always want to have less pressure as you get towards the top because your finger is likely to slip. So if you notice, that wall's already starting to get thinner. One thing a lot of people do is the wall down here ends up being really thick because you're not pressing hard enough when you first get down in there. So this ends up being really thick and then it gets too thin up here. You want to do your best to make sure that it's nice and even. All right? So right now my lower part is a little too thick, which means way down here. So I'm going to try to press those fingers together a little harder down there to get it thinned out and slowly come up. Now if you notice, this thumb is usually anchored somewhere on my right hand. That really helps to have an even pull. When you're pulling up, that's what it's called, a pull. So usually you'll see me try to have some sort of anchor, whether it's over here on my wrist or up here, all right? But you could just pull it up. All right. Now, if we wanted to call this done, if we said, oh yeah, this is perfect, this is a mug that I want to make, or a vase, or a pencil holder, I don't care. What you need to do is you need to get any excess water out of the middle and off of the sides. So if you turn that back on, if you just kind of clean off this and get all the water out of it, you can very slowly start cleaning it up. It'll smooth it out a little bit. Now normally I wouldn't call this done, but just for the sake of our demo. And if you notice, to get into the bottom, I actually just squeeze this between my two fingers because otherwise I can't get it far enough with my hand. So I just kind of get that down in there, come up along the side, and smooth it out. You see in the inside, it's nice and smooth.